say anything next. First of all, it's my pleasure and great happiness to be with you all. I love having this chance to have these conversations. And tonight, I really want it to be a conversation. We're talking about a topic that, first of all, no one, no matter how learned or how knowledgeable they are, can understand. And this is what Baha'u'llah has said. The greatest minds and even the greatest hearts and greatest spirits cannot understand the soul. And so if you find it hard to understand, that probably is a sign that you are getting it. Baha'u'llah says the acme of learning is to recognize your hopelessness in being able to comprehend the soul. And he talked about that the same time he was talking about the incomprehensibility of God and how there is no way that something lower can comprehend something at a higher level. And God is so far higher than we are. There is no way of us comprehending God. Not only is there no way of us comprehending God, we also have a difficulty comprehending anything the next level higher than this. And this is true whether it is intellectually, morally, psychologically. We all go through stages of development. And our soul also goes through stages of development. And depending on what stage of development you're in, some of the ideas and concepts that are presented in the literature will be difficult to understand. I remember reading the 7 Valleys and 4 Valleys for the first time as a teenager about 50 years ago. And I did it because I am a student and I wanted to understand it, but I was completely lost. Even I reread it a few days ago and find each time there's greater and new meanings. I am always developing my own capacity. And as my capacity increases, my understanding of the writings, my understanding of these mystical concepts, my understanding of the stages of the soul advance. In the same way that when you're a child, you cannot understand what it's like to be somebody who has greater cognitive ability. We go through different stages, and at each stage, we have different capacity. As a very small infant, we do not have the capacity to take the perspective of another person. So, for instance, if I show a person, a child, this book, and say, "What do you see?" They would say, "This picture, whatever." Yeah. And then I would turn it over and I would say, "And what do I see?" And they would say basically the same thing. And then I would turn it over and I'd say, "Now what do you see?" And they would describe it. It would be more likely I would have a red and a blue piece of paper. And I would say, "Well, what do I see?" And they would think that I see the same thing they have. There's a point in our development when we cannot take the perspective of another person. There's a point in our development when we can't see something, it doesn't exist. And so when I do to a very little child and I'll go like this and go like that, they get very excited because all of a sudden this thing came out of nowhere. Obviously, if I do that now, you would question my level of sanity, because at different levels, things make sense. At other levels, they don't make sense. And what happens is once we have transcended that level, we can't go back to that. So when I do this and go like that, you can't get the delight that a child got. You are so far behind that you're thinking, why does he doing that? Why does he keep thinking this is going to be funny to me? It's only funny at a certain stage. It only brings delight at a certain stage. Children are able to see things in a very limited way. And as they develop more experience, they begin to see, for instance, when somebody comes over to play with them and they take a toy, all of a sudden that toy becomes their favorite toy and they must have it. It's this egocentric idea, and they cannot understand how that other child has feelings like they have. And these things grow gradually and gradually. It's not that they're dumb or they're not good. It's they have not yet, their souls, their minds have not yet developed the capacity to take that higher level of thinking. Now, once you get that higher level, you can look back at the lower levels and you can comprehend what's going on. You can understand and you can realize that, oh, they will get this, but they won't get that. But they cannot look at you and say, well, this is what you understand. This is what you think. This is true also of souls, not only in terms of our cognitive and moral capacity, but it's also true in terms of our spiritual capacity. People at a higher spiritual level will be able to comprehend and understand people at a lower grade or station, but people at a lower grade and station will not. And this is something that Baha'u'llah has talked about and is going to be very clear in the next world, that we will be able to communicate with one another, but only those souls at the same level will have that same kind of camaraderie and communication. Those, and that you can say visit or talk with people at lower levels, and they can communicate, but it's going to be limited to their understanding. So because this is such a complex statement, a topic, and because no one can comprehend it, and also because every individual at this gathering is going to have a different comprehension about the soul. You each are bringing a different cultural, a different spiritual, a different moral perspective. And so we are going to have different ideas. And in fact, we're going to use different words maybe to express the same idea, or my words may be expressing an idea that you would use a different word to express. Partly that's because in the Baha'i writings, for instance, and in all the mystical literature, when you begin talking about these things that are beyond our comprehension, we are using words that we're trying to symbolize, are trying to conceptualize an idea that is actually beyond our capacity. And so when we talk about soul and spirit, even when we talk about mind and heart, these are things that we have a very limited understanding. And one person's understanding at this level will not jive up with a person at a lower level. A lower level may say, well, the heart or the soul is this. And a person at the higher level will say, well, yes, it's that, but it's more than that. It's broader. It takes that in, but it's much larger. And so tonight I want to really have a conversation. I want to change the format a bit. And so I'm going to be asking you to help me in this process. And I'm going to kind of be pushing you a little bit to do that, because I'm periodically going to stop and ask you to give comments or questions. But in the meantime, I want you to be using the chat. And I hope everyone will put something in the chat tonight. There are 48 of us. I hope each person will put something in the chat. Now, here's what I would like you to put in the chat. If I'm talking about a topic, for instance, and you know a quote that relates to that topic, I hope you, and I'm asking and praying that you will go copy that, whether you Google it on your phone, you have it handy, and put that in the chat so that people can actually go to the writing to refer to it. Because we have so much ground to cover. To try and deal with the writings is going to be a bit challenging. I do have a compilation. I will share that a little bit. And so somewhere along the line, for Azande, you're going to have to make me host so I can share. I have a compilation, it's about 70 pages long, of quotes on the soul, the development of the soul, the nature of the soul, the attributes of the soul after death, and the stages of the soul. And each one of those then is a compilation. I will be putting that compilation up on my website, though it's far from finished, but at least it may be in its form, it may be of interest and use to you, but it does need a lot of refinement. I was hoping to get it refined enough for tonight, but it's not. So I do have a 700-page compilation on the website. And if you go to the chat, you'll see I have put the link that goes right to the Baha'i compilations. I have the link that goes to my general website, rodclarken.wordpress.com. And then the very first thing I put is a reference to a tablet by Abdu'l-Baha that I will be taking a little time to go into. And so you can click on the link there. That'll take you right to the tablet. It's a provisional translation, and that way you'll be able to refer to it and get direct information about it. So with that, I hope that this is in the spirit of consultation, that you will share things in the chat, following kind of the rules and the guidelines of consultation. Consultation is one of the gifts, I believe, that Baha'u'llah has given to this age. And I think we have to begin using the technology in a way that allows us to consult. And because there are 50 of us here, it's hard to manage that. And so we can manage it by putting it in the chat. And then I'm going to ask for Azande and any others, if they, when I stop, to say, is there anything in the chat that we feel it's a question, it's a comment, it's a quote that we should look at? So with that, I'm going to just stop and say, do you have any comments or questions thus far? Somebody says they don't see any links in the chat. Is that true? I'm looking myself. I see them in mine, and it's been sent to everyone. So maybe okay, let's go. Giti, you want to say something? I think that,
yes, I have a question.
Yes,
the
dear.
question is, we know that we believe that at conception, the soul infuses inside the body.
Yes.
Now, I have read somewhere in the Baha'i writing that the souls of the manifestation is pre-exist.
Yes.
So I want to understand that.
Okay, well, you won't be able to understand either of them, because you'll be able to understand them at some level, but you won't be able to have a full comprehension.
So first of all, this statement is right, that the soul of manifestations of God pre-exists even before their birth.
Yes, yes, they are eternal. They are
Eternal.
eternal. They come from another realm. They are not in the realm of creation, which is as we, when Oscar was here, we talked about the realm of Nasut and Malakut. Those are realms of creation. The manifestations come from the realm of Jabarut, the divine kingdom, the dominion, the ephemeral dominion. It is a realm that is eternal and beyond our comprehension. Whatever we do, we will never enter into that realm. We are restricted into this realm of Nasut and Malakut, this world and the world of the kingdom of God. Now, that world of the kingdom of God has many layers, many levels, and such. And above that, then, is the kingdom of the messengers. And if you go to the ring symbol, you'll see the bottom line is representing creation. We're part of that. We are actually in the arc of descent. We are the highest physical creation that has descended from God through the mineral, the vegetable, the animal, the human. Now we are in the process of doing the arc of ascent. And now that arc of ascent has many stages. Those stages have been characterized differently by different authors. Baha'u'llah, in his most known mystical writing, The Seven Valleys, refers to them as 7 stages. Those stages were also used by Faridin Attar in his mystical composition called the Conference of the Birds, which only 2, contentment and wonderment, have been transposed, but otherwise it's the same stages. Baha'u'llah obviously depicts them a little differently, but they are the same. Going back to your first question, that we come into being at conception is true. What is also true is that we do not know when conception happens. And according to the House of Justice, it may not be possible for us either spiritually or even medically or scientifically to know when conception occurs. There is some idea that it occurs when the egg and a sperm unite and the ovum is created, a zygote is created. Some people consider that conception. Other people think it is when the egg it gets implanted in the wall. And so it isn't defined in the Baha'i writings, nor is it defined medically, and nor does it seem that there will be a definition that we will come up with. So, and you were saying it becomes infused in the body. I would say I wouldn't use the term infused, because I think that's a conception that comes from more of the general society. It becomes associated with the body, I think would be a better term to use, in the way that the sunlight would become associated with a mirror when it shines into it. The sun is not, well, you see, this is where we're also dealing with language that gets very confusing, because you can say the sun is not in the mirror, but on the other hand, you could say, yeah, the sun is in the mirror. I see the sun in the mirror, but it's really just the reflection of the sun. It's the rays of the sun that is actually being reflected. So this is one of the problems we have, is that our language is imprecise. In the same way, if I went into the womb of a mother and tried to explain to a yet unborn child about this world, about the nature of their body and how this body is going to function in this world, there would be no language that could possibly convey it, because that embryo or fetus would have no no experience. They have no conception of all the things I'd be talking about. And so when we talk about the soul, we're also having that problem is we don't really know what we're talking about. We're talking about things that are metaphysical, that are beyond our comprehension. And so we have to use metaphors. For instance, we also are dealing with very yet immature ideas about spirituality, the soul, life after death, ideas that are still being influenced by past cultures and past beliefs. For instance, the idea that the soul is inside the body. That's an idea that comes to us from mostly our cultures. So it's very hard, and all of our arts and our literature, all of our ideas. I mean, when we see the soul leaving the body, we actually see like a vapor or an angel coming out of the body and ascending into heaven. We have these concepts in our mind. It's very hard to get rid of them because it is very much what we believe, and it's very much how we grew up thinking. And because we're dealing with such an abstract concept, it's hard to kind of wrap our heads around it. So this just goes to explain a little bit about some of the difficulties we have with that. And so, Gita, now that you've got us started, can anyone else put a comment or question?
Thank you very much. That was very, very helpful.
You're welcome, Gita. Thank you for the question.
A wonderful, wonderful comment is by Todd Booth in the chat. Todd, I don't know why. Okay, would you like to read it yourself, Rod, or do you want me to read it?
You read it or let Todd read it, one of the two.
Todd, would you like to read it?
Okay, am I on now?
Yes.
We hear you.
I'll do my best here. I was
Thank you.
formulating this as the other conversations were going on. The levels of perception described here reminds me of the novella by Edwin A. Abbott.
Aha, yes,
Called
yes.
Flatland. It's about 150 years old, and for everyone else here who's not familiar with it, because clearly you are,
Yes.
this text follows a two-dimensional being trying to be understood by in interactions with a three-dimensional being, and leads us to ponder the relationship we three-dimensional beings would have with interacting with a fourth-dimensional being. My own personal understanding of God, I end here, is that of trying to understand him or her, despite the fact that the being is of a higher dimensional level.
Yes, well, that's excellent, and I think let's just explore. Do you want to explore the flatland idea a little bit?
I think you're probably more qualified than me to do
All
this.
right, well, let me give it a try, and
Thank
then
you.
you fill in the gaps and help. But basically, imagine yourself. Well, let's go back to one dimension. There's just a dot, and you're the dot. Now, I hope I don't lose any of you or a few of you along the way. But that dot, that's its whole world. It can't conceive anything outside the dot. Now, once you make a line, that line then can only relate to lines and other things. And so when you now create two dimensions, you make, let's say, a square, all of a sudden you have a whole different realm. It's a different language. It's a different worldview. You see the world, you experience the world differently. Now that dot, that square can understand the dot and the line because they are part of it. It's beneath them. It includes the line and the dot, but it transcends it by creating shapes. Any kind of shape, two-dimensional, anything you can draw on a piece of paper. That becomes that world. Now, all of a sudden, you take the 2 dimensions and then you put a 3rd dimension. You come off the thing, and now you make a box instead of just a square. You have a box. It's a whole different realm. And those people in the lower levels will deny those higher levels exist. Those are fantasies to them. Those are not real, because they can only see according to their limited dimensionality. And as a result, you have this conflict. You have these people, all, especially the lower people, kind of fighting against the higher people, because they think, no, you're trying to put something over. You're talking about something that isn't real and isn't possible. In the same way that people might be talking to people who believe in a spiritual reality, saying, where is that reality? I can't see that reality. I'm just a square on a piece of paper. I can't even imagine there's this dimension. I see physical things. This is me. There's no spirit behind this. This is all there is. And so we have this problem. And this has basically become the very kind of thinking that you'll see among many, probably most intellectuals. I worked in a university for decades, and talk about God and the soul just does not happen. And
can I interject here?
Yeah.
This is maybe because I've tried to explain this to others that I know, I mean, in my own perception, and don't always find a success in doing so. But maybe a parallel would be, just to try and comprehend it. Imagine a tabletop, and there are beings that move around on the tabletop. So it's just 2-dimensional beings moving around on the tabletop. And then you, being a 3-dimensional being, put your fingers on the tabletop. And the 2-dimensional beings would then, they couldn't look up, they only can look across. So they would then see all of these barriers that would just come in as your fingers would touch that. But they would have no idea that when they hit a wall over here, or they hit another wall over here, that those walls were in fact connected higher up in your hand. I can just leave that kind of metaphor, and then imagine that taking it 3-dimensionally into a higher dimensions.
Yeah. So if I just take this book, and you're living on the cover of this book, and if I put my finger down, all they're going to be able to see is what actually contacts the page. They can't see there's a whole reality. So they would say, oh yeah, there's some, this is making a little circle, that my fingertips making a little circle, but they have no concept that that circle is connected to a finger, to a hand, et cetera, to a whole nother realm that is real, just as real as their world. And so if that metaphor works for you, if not, you can go get the book and
go get the book and read it. Yeah. Thank you for hearing me out.
Yeah, thank you for the question. So before we get back into anything else, anybody else?
There is a question, Rod, which is said, what is the difference between soul and spirit?
Very good question. Soul and spirit are used interchangeably in the Baha'i writings. And so if you're confused, you have a right to be confused, because sometimes they're using soul when they actually mean spirit. And sometimes they're using spirit when they actually mean soul. And so the spirit is I'm trying to find a simple way to do it. So if somebody comes up with a better way, please chime in. But I would say spirit is that energy that is infused in everything. Everything has a spirit. Everything, there's a mineral spirit, there's a vegetable, everything has a spirit. Every created thing reflects an attribute of God. The human being is unique in that it has an immortal identity. The human spirit is one thing, but when that human spirit becomes associated with an individual body, it is identified as a human soul. It has an identity that begins forming at conception and continues developing and evolving throughout eternity. So I hope that, but in both cases, we're talking about something we can't see, we can't feel. We just see the attributes of it. We can see the reflection of it in this world. Here's the other problem: is we've grown up, at least I've grown up, thinking this is real. This is who I am. But this is not who I am. This is a collection of atoms that is associated together. My immortal, and this is in this world, you're going to say, oh, that's Rod Clarken. But in the next world, you're not going to say that's Rod Clarken, because this is going to be dust. This is not going to be there. This is not going to have any association with that soul. Once it leaves, this body deteriorates. It's deteriorating already. It's declining. It's weakening every year. I turn 72 next week. Every year it gets weaker. Every year it loses more capacity. And it is literally dying. It is deteriorating. It's disintegrating. And there is a point when it's no longer going to sustain itself. But this is just the vehicle that is carrying my immortal identity is associated with. Once this is broken, like the mirror is broken, that light continues to exist in this same world. That's the other mystery that's kind of confusing to us, is that we're already in the next world. In the same way that when we were in our mother's womb, we were already in this world. We just couldn't see it because we had that thin layer of skin of the womb that kept us from realizing, oh, we're already in this world. We have this veil that's keeping us from knowing that world, but we're here already. We are already in the next world. We just have this thin layer of skin that keeps us from seeing that world, from experiencing that world. And that's part, I guess, of the wisdom of God. Because if the child in the womb knew how contained and trapped they were in that world, they would long to escape. They would long to be out and to begin using all of these wonderful gifts that they've been developing in the womb of their mother. But no, they are kept from that knowledge, and not until they are ready do they enter that world. We are kept from this world, and Baha'u'llah has several times said, I cannot, if I reveal to you a glimmer, needle's glimmer of that next world, the people who had lived good lives would be so exalted and so joyous they would rush to get there. And the other people who had not lived a good life would be so filled with fear they would expire from just that little bit of glimmer of that next world. So we're already there. Those souls that have gone beyond are here with us, and may God, I've asked them to help me tonight. So I hope they're still hovering around, and they will, when those ideas come, some of those souls will whisper into my soul saying, say this, or here's an idea, try this. And that's what most of my talks are about. I speak from the heart. I try to speak from my soul. I try to speak to your soul. So we're having a conversation on different levels. On one level, it's a physical conversation. I'm making vibrations. Those vibrations are going through the microphone and into your speaker. Light is going off my face. You don't actually see me. You're seeing, and you don't actually hear me. You're hearing vibrations of air. You are seeing light reflected off my body. This is not actually the real world. The real world is that spiritual world of which we're part. Just like we could say when we're in our mother's womb, that's not the real world. That's just a world preparing you for what looks like is the real world. And when we get into this world, we think, oh, now this is the real world. No, this world is just preparing us to go into that next world. And what we can do in this world is begin removing those veils that keep us from experiencing and being part of that next world. And so that's where we are at, and so our identifying so much with our body and our mind, whereas Baha'u'llah has said, know that the soul is exalted above and independent of all infirmities of body and mind. The soul is exalted above and independent of this and this and this. This is all a shadow. This is all the vehicle through which my soul is able to operate. How am I, my mind and my tongue, able to verbalize, to say these words that are coming to me? I've never thought of these words before. I didn't know I was going to say these words, but all of a sudden, this energy, this life force is telling my mind and my tongue, say this, do this. And as a result, this, to the extent that I can get my ego and my desires and my attachments and all of those things out of the way, that soul can come through and can speak rather clearly. So hopefully that each one of your souls is going to be able to hear that, because you're not going to have the ego connected with it. You're not going to have all of my vain imaginings and idle fancies coming out with it. Hopefully it's going to come out as much as I've been able at this stage in my life to come out as a pure spirit, as these words are conveying a spirit. And that spirit hopefully will come into your head, through your mind, and will somehow, your spirit is also going to be impacted. Just as my spirit is being moved to say these words, your spirit is now having the chance to process this and to say, do I see it that way? How do I feel about that? Because what I'm hoping tonight is that whatever level you're at, we can move you to the next level. We're not going to get you to the kingdom of God. We're not going to get you to the seventh valley. We just want, wherever level you're at, we want you to be able to start moving out of that level, go to the next level, because it's a process and you don't do it all at once. Abdu'l-Baha says there's a universal principle of gradual growth. That happens with the soul as well. Things don't just happen. It's not like you have this seed and then you got the tree with fruit. It goes through a process. Your soul has gone through a process. It started off just like your body, because this world physically resembles the next world. This world is a shadow. And so whatever happens here is kind of a metaphor for what's happening there. And so our body is a metaphor for the soul. The embryo, for instance, is a metaphor for the soul. Just as we came into being as a one-cell creature, our souls come into being as, let's say, a one-cell soul. It has all the potentialities in it, just like that one cell had of my body, my eyes and ears, my height, and all these things about me were in that one cell. But they had to go through thousands of stages of development, of process, to get to this stage where it is now. And now it's in that state of decline. My soul, hopefully, is going the opposite direction, which is why I'm kind of happy about this stage in my life. Because as this goes down, I am feeling closer and closer to God. And I probably am closer to God because I am going to be passing into that life more abundant sooner than later. And so I feel closer to God, but I also am more detached. You know, when I was younger and was a dean, was a professor, was whatever I was, I took some pride in that. I was attached to that. These were veils between me and God. I don't have those veils now. I'm just an old man trying to know and love God. And when Furazande calls me Dr. Clarken, it sounds so strange to me because Dr. Clarken's kind of a title. It was at a certain stage in my life. That is not my identity. I don't, it's not an ego kind of thing because it's like, what does Dr. Clarken doesn't mean anything to me now. So I'll leave it at that. And I see there's lots of things popping up and let's go. But this is the way I wanted it to happen. And the spirits are working. They're coming through and you guys are writing and
Rob, why don't I read some of these questions? I think we will stay here till tomorrow morning and deal with this. One of these questions which is directed to me. Are we aware of each other's spiritual capacity and level, or is that only realized in the next world?
They asked it of you, so you get to answer it for Sunday.
Oh my God, I didn't know I came to school. Go ahead.
You want me to do it?
I didn't know I came to school. Go ahead.
Right. All right. So both. We can recognize it in this world, but we will recognize it more so in the next world. So I'll give you an example that may be helpful or not helpful, but in the world of the womb, for instance, I could tell you how handsome I am and how smart I am and how strong I am, all of these things. But there's no way for you to really know because we're in this dark world and we all pretty much look alike. It's one baby. We're all kind of very similar at that stage. Our potentialities have not been realized yet. The same thing is happening in this world. I could tell you how great I am and all of these kinds of things. And there's, how the spiritual things, how spiritual I am and what stage I'm at stage 7. I've done all this prayer and meditation. And there's no way for you to know, except if I said all of that, you would know right away that that's not true. So immediately that's a sign that if you're bragging about that, you're not there. You, wherever you're at is not where I want to be, because that's really a pretty low level. So the point is we can recognize, and hopefully, I mean, it's through our words, through our actions, even through our eyes, maybe even through our faces, our smiles, through different ways. There are different signs that come through. Some of it won't even be any of that. It's just a feeling you get when you're with this person. You know, and I've been around a lot of people, and I just realize I am nothing. I am nothing. I am nothing. And you want to be around those kind of people, because they help you to realize how far you yet to go. Because no matter where you are, there are infinite stages above you. And that's part of the problem. It's the same thing happens in real life. When you're young and then you get to this age, you think, oh gosh, I know it all. I'm so smart now. I'm really good. When you become a teenager, you really know it all. It's like, hey, I've got it all figured out. You know, at each stage, you think, I'm there. I've got it. But it's only because you are limited in your understanding. That's why it's helpful to read the writings, to pray, because all of a sudden, when you're saying those prayers and it says, you know, saying all these things, oh God, I am this and I am holy and I am all of these things, and you realize, oh my God, what am I saying? None of these things refer to me. You know, this is, I feel like I can't say this prayer. But then I just realized this is what it's calling me to be. And so by reading the writings, there are all of these stages, you begin to be able to kind of, you should be able to start doing some self-evaluation and to say, oh, I think I'm probably at this stage. If you don't understand the higher stage, that means you're probably not there. For instance, if you are all worked up about something and somebody's very contented, let's say, and they're like, you know, it's the will of God. And you look at them and say, what is wrong with these people? Why don't they get it? You know, the world is going to hell and they are somehow contented with the will of God. Because in their point of view, they don't see it. Go ahead, Forrest. You have to school me now.
No, it's it's just that there are so many things are happening. Why don't we ask Mr. Perimal? Mr. Perimal said that there is a description about that by Abdul Baha in some answered questions. Mr. Perimal, would you like to address that yourself?
Oh, maybe we can ask the doctor to explain about this. There is something about the spirit and the soul, which Abdullah has explained in some answered question.
So can you read it to us? Can you post that answer? Can you copy it and post it in the chat?
Okay, I'll post it.
It would be better if you just copied it and posted it in the chat. That way we have it and people can look at it for their own enlightenment. But again, I'm going to warn you that Abdul Baha talks about soul and spirit several different places, and you're going to get, this is the other problem. If you take any one writing and you think, okay, this is the soul and this is the spirit. And once you start reading other things, you're going to start getting confused because there's going to be different explanations. But every writing that we have and some answer questions is authoritative. Let's put it up there. And so if you would post it, I'd appreciate that.
Okay, so there is another, Mr. Perumal, we're waiting to see that. There's another post which is directed to me. How do we recognize our loved ones after they leave us?
That's a great question. So let's just start. How would you recognize anybody here? For instance, how will you recognize me in the next world? It's a great question. It's a very important question because it helps us to get rid of our attachment to all of this stuff, because I will not have any of this stuff in the next world. So maybe one of the ways you would recognize me is maybe in this time when we're talking, we're together, maybe you're feeling some spirit from me. Oh, he has this, there's a certain something about him, about the way he says things, about this or that. That might be one of the ways you would recognize. The thing is if you have not developed your spiritual eyes and ears, I think you're not going to recognize anybody. I think you'll be going into the next world at a very low level, and a level where your eyes and ears were not developed. And so if you couldn't, for instance, the way you can recognize me is that there's light shining off of my body. That's the only way you if I turn the lights off, the only way you'd recognize me is by my voice. And my voice gets a little closer because my voice, my face does convey some of my spirit, my eyes and such, I would assume. My voice, my words convey a bit more. But if we have not developed our spiritual eyes and ears, we will not, I don't think we will recognize. And we will not be able to recognize, according to my understanding of Baha'u'llah's writings, those people at a higher stage. Or if we recognize them, we're not going to really know who they are and such like that. We're going to say, oh, that's, you know, I've had the opportunity to be with several hands of the cause, and yeah, I got a different feeling, and I think maybe in the next world I'll have that feeling when I'm around those souls. But if this is a question I think we need to meditate more on. How will you recognize your wife or your husband or your children? How will you know it's them? This is good. So I'm opening the floor to people to speak to that or any other comments or questions. But you're not going to recognize them with these eyes or ears. You're going to have to see them with spiritual eyes and ears. So how do you know somebody else's spirit in this world? Could you recognize? Here, let me give you another little hint. When you're in the dream world, for instance, and I'll just speak about my dream world, I often am seeing people and I know it's that person, but it really doesn't look like that person. But it is, for instance, maybe it's my dad. It's my dad, but he looks different than my dad, but I know it's my dad. Or in different situations, you'll have that. The dream world is the best window we have for seeing the next world. And so in that dream world, if you're recognizing people in this world, then I'm thinking that's the best experiential example that I can give you for how you will recognize people in the next world. So let's hear some other people. For Zande, there are people that are putting their hands up and there are people that have hands up. let's carry on the conversation. So I'm leaving for
Absolutely. I have one more question, and
Okay.
then we'll ask Shahzad Jan to go for it.
Okay.
The question is about dreams and people who dream of their loved ones who have actually left them, but they are able to reflect some ideas or appreciations to the family who's here in this world. So
Yes.
would you like to comment about that? There are so many things.
Sure. No, I think dreams are, again, a wonderful example. And again, it's a little bit hard to talk about, but we can at least talk about dreams because I trust everybody has experienced dreams. Everybody dreams, obviously, but not everybody remembers their dreams. So just the very example that I was giving about the dream where people are coming to you that you're not seeing. They may even be people in this world right now who, your brother, your sister, they're in your dream, or a friend. I have friends that come back in my dream all the time. But obviously I'm in the dream world. So, but I'm talking to my friend. So I think those people in the next world, it's just as easy or easier for them to come back and to be into our world. The problem is sometimes it is our imagination. So you can never be 100% sure, except for your own self. I mean, if you say, yes, it was my dad, and yes, he told me to do this, and I'm going to do that, then I think you follow your heart. But you can't say it was my dad, and he told you to sell your car and leave. That's maybe going too far. So I think that guidance may be good for you, but you can't put that guidance on other people, is what I'm trying to say in a hopefully not a too far distant way. So I hope that I'm trying to keep the answers a bit short because I see there are lots of hands and questions and such. And so if it isn't enough of an answer, so I guess the short answer is you obviously you can communicate with the people who have passed on. People have communicated with Abdu'l-Baha and Baha'u'llah even. And so all of these are possibilities, but your assurance of who it is and what it is and how, whether it's an inspired dream or your imagination is the problem.
Thank you. And thank you to the friends who are sending me messages on WhatsApp and questions. And there is the descriptions, the explanation of in some answered question about spirit and the soul by Abdu'l-Baha. Let us get the questions and then we will go back to that. Okay, why don't we ask either Gary or Sylvia? Is this Gary?
Yes.
Go ahead, please.
Yeah, it's I hope this is connected to the conversation, but there's a hidden word that's always sort of been a mystery to me. And I'll just read it if I could. Oh, my friends, have ye forgotten that true and radiant morn, when in those hallowed and blessed surroundings ye were all gathered in my presence, beneath the shade of the tree of life, which is planted in the all-glorious paradise? Awestruck ye listened, and I gave utterance to these three most holy words. O friends, prefer not your will to mine. Never desire that which I have not desired for you, and approach me not with lifeless hearts, defiled with worldly desires and cravings. And this particular part is the one that I'm always thinking about. Would ye but sanctify your souls, ye would at this present hour recall that place and those surroundings, and the truth of my utterance should be made evident unto all of you. Where did that take place?
Well, I'm going to again give you a short answer. There is an explanation of that. If you do a search, you'll be able to find it. It's an authoritative explanation, I believe, given by the Guardian. So it's obviously much better, and it's going to be.
Okay.
But I think that we are all connected to God. There are so many paradoxes in the Baha'i writing, so many apparent contradictions. And it's only as we try to resolve those contradictions, how could it be this and this, that when we are trying to resolve them, that we come to even deeper understandings. There's a world of meanings between those two apparent contradictions. So that is in some ways, it's beyond our comprehension in this realm. But I think, speaking metaphorically, we were all connected from God. We all come from God, and unto God we shall return. So I'm keeping it short.
Yep. All right.
To find a better explanation from the Guardian.
Thank you, Rod. Lewis written, know thou that the soul of the people of Baha who have entered and been established within the Crimson Ark shall associate and commune intimately one with another, and shall be so closely associated in their lives, their aspirations, their aims, and striving as to be even as one soul. And the source has been given as well.
Okay, the next two sentences are very important. So she didn't put them up there.
She didn't.
I'll paraphrase the next two sentences, because basically they're saying those people of a lower grade will not, those people, the people of Baha, will commune intimately with one another. But those people of a lower grade will not be able to understand or communicate with them. So that's it.
Yeah.
If you go to that quote and then read the next two sentences, you'll get that idea.
Okay, the quote is in chat. Louis, would you like to comment about that yourself?
Yes, thank you. That is such an interesting juxtaposition, because the people who are at the lower levels, and this has always been a quandary for me, especially coming from a traditional indigenous background, where the teachings are that when you go to the next world, you'll see your relatives. And so I'm always thinking to myself, will I be capable of conversing with these souls, these people who are my ancestors? So I'm always trying to figure that one out.
Well,
and then also the whole business of, when you're the more, and I wrote the next one too from Shoghi Effendi, said, the pure and more free from prejudice and desire our hearts and minds become. He's talking about the dream world. And so I'm just trying to understand that, and maybe I'm sure there's a lot of people here that can also add to that, is that you made mention of those two last sentences, and I'm sorry I cut that off, but yeah. So the people who have been or have matured, their souls have matured in this world, they will be able to also see those other souls. Is this?
Well, let me give you an example. First of all, for all of you here, when I go to the next world, you'll be at the higher level. So you can talk to me. You can say, oh, Rod, it was nice talk you gave, but you really didn't quite get it. You said the words, but you did have the right. So it's the same way, for instance, if I'm talking to a child I can talk to the child and the child can communicate with me, but I obviously have a whole different understanding than the child has. So the child may look at me as some big kid or something, of whatever is in their mind. They're going to have some, again, I'm giving you just a metaphor, an analogy that may be helpful, so that the higher level can communicate. I will be able to kind of know what he's saying and understand what he's thinking, but they will not be able to understand all that I'm saying and thinking. They'll be able to understand it at their level.
Right.
Is there any more comments, Louis, by any chance?
No, it's I really love, how Rod, you're really encouraging all of us to acknowledge and recognize that we have such a short time in this life, in this world, to learn as much as we possibly can. Because as you were saying, at the beginning, you offered prayers and you asked those people who have gone on, those magnificent souls, to help you. And I don't know about the rest of you, but I really depend on that, especially in this day and age. This is something that, I learned to do this when I was a young child, that you have to call on those great people who went on before you.
Yes,
To help you. Yeah.
That's the wisdom. Before we go on, a couple of weeks ago, we had Oscar join us, and he's going to join us again. We're actually living together. We have separate apartments at the Baha'i National Center in the Virgin Islands. Oscar came down here
That's
to
pretty
work.
rotten. Oh my goodness.
He's come down here to work with the youth, and so he and I have been working with the schools and community centers and boys and girls clubs and such, trying to. Oscar founded the Baha'i Youth Workshops, and which is spread around the world, and he's a remarkable individual. But I'm not going to embarrass him anymore. I'll let him say what he wants to say.
No, I was listening. My phone is acting up, so I couldn't get it to work. I couldn't get on and all that. So I'm interrupting Rod to be able to speak to you for a few minutes. I put together many compilations myself on various topics for young people. And so I compiled a lot of notes and information. And what I found about the soul as it relates to the next world and to dreams, Abdu'l-Baha makes it very clear in his statements that if you dream about someone who was passed on, you have been with that person. It's not a memory. You have been with them. And he said that world is a world of vision. So we will see even more than we can see here. So vision in that world is not limited. It is expanded. So you will not only see, but you will recognize everything that you could not recognize when you were in this world. Everything becomes available to you that you were not able to understand. Even the lowest level of human being will be a greater level in that life than we can imagine. Because he says the jump between this world and the next world is greater than the baby coming into this life. So imagine how huge of a leap we're going to take when he compares that world in the womb to this life, and he says the next level is even greater. So it blows my mind. I can't even wrap my head around the idea that the baby in the womb is, coming to this life. Is such a difference between the 9 months dark little doom kind of a dungeon that you're in your mom's womb compared to this world we're in right now. Imagine how big a difference that is. And we're going to take it even a greater leap. So I was thinking about something Abdu'l-Baha also said about a woman who lost her baby when she was pregnant. She lost a little child. And she had a dream about a woman in a garden. And she was about 19 and she was dressed in the flowers. And she came into the garden. The woman rushed towards her to embrace her. And she saw a startling resemblance of her tiny daughter that she had lost. And Abdu'l-Baha said, you have seen your daughter as she is now, right, in one of the worlds of God. She was raised in the kingdom. He says, be thankful that God has allowed you to see your daughter in the other world. So we do have these communications and contact in the next world. And also he makes it clear that we will assume a form for that life. The soul needs something to function with. We function in this world with a body. In your dream, you have another form because you're walking around and talking in your dream and you're seeing and hearing, but you're not using your body. It's a different kind of form. Abdu'l-Baha said it's an ethereal form that corresponds to this body. Ethereal form that corresponds to the physical body. And he says when you go into the next world, you will assume a form suitable for that immortality. So you will take on another form. It won't be a body like this body. It won't be the body in the dream. It'll be a whole different kind of existence. But the soul will use a vehicle in that world just as it uses in this world and in the dream world. Those are all different vehicles that they use. The soul is using in order for it to function. So we always need something to function, and the soul is attached and connected to these forms. The soul is connected to the body. It's connected to the dream world. The soul connects to another form because your head's in the right place, your feet's everything's in the right place in the dream, right? But you're not using your body. It's in the bed, dead at home. You're off in Paris somewhere, seeing walking, doing all this stuff, and your body's at home in the bed. And yet you're doing everything you normally do in everyday life, but you're not using your body. It's a clear example that we don't need our body to function. We don't need a body. The dream world proves to us we don't need a physical body to be ourselves. Every time we dream, we prove we don't need a body. And so he says in the next world, you will assume another form. Not the dream form, not the physical form, a whole nother form for the next world that you're going to take on when you get there. And you will know everyone. You will see everyone. Yes, according to where you live, if in your neighborhood, there are different neighborhoods in this world, right? You got Beverly Hills and you got Watts, California. Come on, there's two different neighborhoods, right? But everybody's in the same city, but they're in different neighborhoods. So you'll be in your own neighborhood. Rod will be in his neighborhood. I'll be in my neighborhood. We can go visit each other as much as we want to, but I can't move into Beverly Hills with Rod because Rod, that's an expensive neighborhood. I can't afford to live where Rod lives. So Rod can come visit me in my neighborhood, but they don't want me coming over to his neighborhood. There are policemen that say, you need to stay over there on that side of town. You don't need to come over here. Rod is busy right now. So I'm just saying, we have to understand that we are going to be associated with each other in the next world like we are in this world. And there are different levels and grades in this life, and there'll be different levels and grades in that life. But we'll all be there together. It won't be like, nobody's going to know anybody. We're all going to know each other. We're all going to see each other. At the highest level of Malakut, he says, it's the concourse on high and the angels of God. That is the highest level of Malakut, the Apa kingdom, is where the souls of the martyrs and all of those, they exist there. And yes, they can come and visit us, but we can't go to their neighborhood. They can come and visit us in our neighborhood. We can wave at them as they go by. I mean, if they happen to pass by, we can say hello. But I'm saying, all this is metaphorical because we don't know literally what kind of form we're going to have or what kind of beings we're going to be. But we know we're going to be associated with each other. And we know that we're going to remember each other. Abdu'l-Baha, absolutely everyone will remember everyone in their family. You will know everyone in your family. Your ancestors will be there as well. They will all be there with you. In fact, some of them might be greeting you when you come and welcoming you to that world. So there's no us and them in that world. It's all one reality. And we're all part of that one reality. But we have our individual souls and we'll attract those like unto ourselves. There'll be those of the same level will gather together. Those at a higher level will gather together. Those at lower levels will gather together, and they'll all attract each other according to their capacities to attract each other. They'll be together. And everyone will be together that way. And even more strangely, Abdu'l-Baha says, if you didn't find the person that you needed in this life as a mate, he says he calls it an affinity. You will find your affinity in the next world. That other soul that will be with you forever, that soul is going to be, you may not find him in this life, or you may meet them and it may not click in this life, but you will find a soul in the next world who you will become attracted to. He calls it an affinity, and you'll be with this person in the next life. If you don't find your soulmate, supposedly, that's a bad term, but if you don't find that person, that soul, that reality in this world, you will find them in the next world, Abdu'l-Baha says. You will definitely find that person. You will gravitate toward them and they will gravitate towards you, and you will come together and be together for an eternity together. So I think that's very reassuring. Okay,
Dear
I'm gonna
friends,
stop. I think I've said probably more than I needed to.
dear friends, you realize that you're getting 2 for 1 fireside. You see, this is 2 for 1. We really, really appreciate the fact that that Rod always has fantastic friends, and their friendship always actually feed us as much as they feed him. Thank you to both of you. And I think what we see in this call is just so beautiful. Other than the soul and this, this friendship that we see here, it's so beautiful between different races, between two. I mean, it's beautiful. That is why we need to teach the Baha'i faith. Now, I have one question waiting that I hope this person would not hate me. First of all, Francine asks, how do you see, Francine, I told you I won't forget it. How do you communicate with others who do not believe or have your understanding of the soul?
How do I do that? Well, I go back to the dream once again. I try to explain to them that Jake, you can exist without a body. And the dream, Abdu'l-Baha says, the dream world is a world unto itself. It is a world. And he says that world is a glimpse into the next life. Right. It is our way of being able to look a little bit into that other world. The dream worlds in lots of cultures are very important. Dreams and seances and meditations and, powwows, these are things that people get together and they experience these powerful realities while still in this life. So the dream for us, he says, lets us know that we have a form and an existence that is not physical. He says, Baha'u'llah says you can even have what we call the deja vu experience. Baha'u'llah says you can go into a timeless dream and go into the future and have an experience, then come back and wake up in the present, and then live to have that same experience that you had in your dream. We call it deja vu, but you've actually already been to another location at another time and come back to the present only to live to have that happen again. Because in that world, there is no time. There's no limitations. Therefore, you can experience something in a dream and then come back in the physical life and then live to have that material physical existence happen again to you. Let's say you went off to Germany in your dream and you met this person and they walked in the door and they said that and they did that. And then you somehow end up in Germany someday and you walk into this room and there's that person and they're saying what they said in the dream exactly as they did 10 years earlier, Baha'u'llah says. Mm-hmm. But now you're experiencing it in the real time. He says that is the reality of the soul. It's no limitations on it. It can go into the future or the present. And the dream is what I say to people who to deny the idea of a soul, that we talk about the dream and we talk about this idea of deja vu. Baha'u'llah describes deja vu perfectly. Abdu'l-Baha does it too. He describes how you can go into the future and come back and live to have the same experience again. So that's exactly how I would explain it. And they have no answer for this. There's no way to refute that because it happens to everyone. I used to write down my dreams. I wrote down my dream one morning, and I came out of my bedroom into the living room, and then I heard a knock at the door, and in my dream, someone knocked at the door. I knew who it was, and they came in and said to my mother certain things. I stood in my living room and watched my dream happen right in front of me. I just wrote it down in my room. To prove to me that it was real, Baha'u'llah let me see that it was real. I wrote it down, and then the person walked into my house and delivered the exact message that I heard in my dream. They delivered at my front door, which was amazing.
Thank you so much. I would like to ask both Geeti Jun and Simin Jun to be a bit more patient because we have millions of things in this chat. The question is this the same as the idea that you only see a part of an iceberg above the water?
With regard to the next world?
I guess
Yes, I wrote that question. Yes, I believe that's what I was referring to, but I was also referring to the flatland idea, like two-dimensional and three-dimensional people.
We have very limited vision in this world. And you're right, we're only seeing a very small part of what we call reality. Because reality for us is limited to our ability to function in this particular situation we're in. Abdu'l-Baha makes it clear that we are spiritual beings having a temporary material existence. We are not spirit. We're not looking for spirit. We are spirit. And we're having a temporary situation in a material world. And this world is not the real deal. We're going to leave this behind, as Rod said earlier, and we're going to go off into another world. And that's going to be our eternal existence. So don't get it twisted. Don't get attached to this stuff. This is not the deal right here. Whatever, how much money you got in the bank, however big your house is, however nice your car is, you're going to leave it all behind, and you're going to have to deal in a spiritual world. Baha'u'llah says to the kings and rulers, "We will bring you from your palace to your grave. What then shall you achieve? How shall you atone for your past failure? I will lay you beneath a canopy of dust. What then will you be able to do?" So we're limited in this world to what we can understand, we can see. The dream is a great example and a glimpse of how we can exist without this body. And it's so cool. You can even fly once in a while, you know? You can take off and fly in a dream. You can run, jump, do all kind of cool stuff. The people who don't have, who are crippled and don't have legs or arms, in dreams, they can do everything they want to do. They know that they can function in this dream without their physical body. They dream that they have legs. They dream that they have arms. And they function in that world in a normal state. So we have the wonders of this example of the dream world. You can't do better than the dream world. It is so exciting and so clear that we exist without a body in this form, and that we have experiences. And I've seen many friends and family in my dreams who passed on. And I had a friend of mine who passed away, and his daughter was grieving so hard that it was bothering him. So he came to me in his dream, and he said, "Oscar," he gave me a big hug, big smile, and gave me a big hug. And he said in my ear, "Tell her I'm okay. Tell my daughter not to worry, that I'm okay." So the next day I called her and told her, "Your father wants you to stop crying. He wants you to know that he's okay." I believed I met my friend in that dream. And I believe he sent me a message to give to his daughter, who was grieving so hard that he couldn't function over there. It was bothering him that she was crying so much every day. And he wanted me to tell her that he was okay. So I'm thinking, I believe these things are real. I know for myself, I've had these experiences, and I know that they're real for me. Again, I can't speak for everyone, and I know everyone has their own experiences. But Abdu'l-Baha and Baha'u'llah make it clear that these things are real and can be real for all of us. And that this is not always just our imagination, or just our having, ate the wrong hot dog and went to bed and our stomach is growling and we're having nightmares because the stomach is all making all this noise. I mean, there's all kinds of dreams, by the way. Baha'u'llah said there's all kinds of dreams. So we have to be clear that, like Rod was saying, some of them are worthless. Shoghi Effendi says some of them don't mean anything. And then there are those that are profound and that are very, very meaningful. So, but they're good examples of how to explain the soul and how we can function without a body.
Thank you so much. May I read something that is by Louise in the chat? In a letter written in 1925 on behalf of Shoghi Effendi, the guardian of the Baha'i faith, he wrote, "The purer and more free from prejudice and desire our hearts and minds become, the more likely is it that our dreams will convey reliable truth. But if we have strong prejudices, personal likings and aversions, bad feelings or evil motives, these will wrap and distort any inspirational impression that comes to us. Thank you, Luz. Thank you so much. Thank you. I mean, I need a secretary to read all of this. I apologize if I didn't go through all of your messages. I'm sorry. It's 9. That's fine. We will omit our prayer sessions. We'll go to Giti. Giti Khanum, please go ahead, short and
Yes.
sweet.
Yeah, very short.
Yes.
We understand that we are in this world to advance ourselves, to learn virtues, so we can have a better afterlife. Now, if I know this is a difficult and mystical question, how about if a 20-year-old young person who dies in an accident and does not get a chance to perfect himself or herself?
Well, Baha'u'llah says that God is merciful and he's bountiful. He will definitely look at the person and take into account what they were able to achieve in this life. And I often ask people, what do you think happens to little babies that die, or children that die when they're 4 or 5 or 6? Don't you think they have to have teachers in the next world? People think, I mean, we're not going to float around on clouds eating grapes. I mean, people got this vision of the next world. We're going to be busy doing work. We're going to be put to work in the next world. We have jobs to do. We have things to do. We're not going to be floating around doing nothing. You know, people say rest in peace. There's no resting in peace. What peace you going to rest in? Baha'u'llah's got a job for you. If a baby leaves this world at 4 or 5 and doesn't get to grow up in this world, they grow up in the next world. And they're going to need someone to teach them. They're going to need a teacher. They're going to learn about music. They're going to learn about all these spiritual things we have and material things we have in this world. They all exist in the next world. Everything we have here is there. Everything we have here is in the next world in its own form. It exists there. So we're not leaving somewhere, going to some vague, nebulous place. We're going to a world that's got stuff going on, that's got business to do. We got places to go, people to see, things to do. You're going to be involved in that world. It's not going to be a hangout lazy day every day. You're going to have stuff to do. You got to go to work. You know, my sister had a dream about my wife passed away in 1993, and my sister had a dream, and in the dream she was trying to find my wife Freddie, and she kept asking, where's Freddie? I want to see. And she says, the woman that she was talking to said, honey, I'm sorry, but Freddie is really busy right now. She's not going to be able to meet with you today. So it was like she was busy. My wife was busy doing something over there. She didn't have time to meet with my sister. So you see, there's stuff going on over there. There are things to do, and we got functions to take care of. He said that the concourse on high are the ones that inspire us in this world. The arts and sciences come from that world. He said we're inspired in this world from souls in that other life. So you can see that they're busy. They got stuff to do. They're down here inspiring Rod for his conversation in this talk tonight. I mean, we all got stuff that comes through us from the next life. If we stay open to it, if we stay conscious of the fact that we are not doing this all ourselves, and that the next world is not another world away from us. He said that the spiritual world and the material world are connected. They're two sides of one coin. It's one reality. Spiritual on one side, material on the other. They're not separate worlds, Baha'u'llah says. They're not two separate worlds. They're one world connected with two different realities, but they're connected as to one. And we have to understand that. Science and religion, faith and reason,
Mm.
Matter and spirit, all connected, two sides of one coin. They're all connected. We're not separate. Does that make sense?
Thank you very much, Oscar. Friends, don't send me any more information or messages on my WhatsApp. We don't have time for this. We will ask these two gentlemen to come back again, both Rod, dearest Rod, and also Oscar. We only have 10 more minutes. We have Simi Khanum, who has been waiting very patiently. Simi Jun, please, short and sweet.
Merci. I want to everything that I forgot his name. Friend of Rod said. I want to say because I read about life after death, and I believe on everything that he said. But the thing that whenever I have a dream, I see my family that passed away the same way that I know them here. Like I recognize them by this way, because this is the thing that I remember about them. And I pray when I am in trouble and ask for help. And they, for example, if I pray for my father and he come to my dream, and that problem that I have, I know that is going to solve because I pray and I ask him. But I want to ask you about this, that you said that from the higher come to lower, but the lower cannot see the others. But we have in writing also, I study and also I experience people who are dying when I go to visit them in a hospital with their family. And then they see their family coming to take them. Mm-hmm. They say, and they tell us, my mother came and my father, and they tell me, come here is very good, but I don't want to leave my wife here. And the family said, no, please go. It's a good place. We are taking care of this. So how do you explain that? Because they are maybe they are maybe in lower station, but how come they come to welcome the person to take them to the next world? Thank you.
Thank you, Simiju. Thank you so much.
They're the next life, when they enter the next world, the lowest level of that world is higher than anything we can imagine in this world. So no matter what their station is, they can influence this life. They can in that world, only in a good way. Abdu'l-Baha says evil is not allowed to function in that world. They cannot do harm to anyone. They can't do evil to anyone. They can only do good in that world. So you only take the good things with you to the next life. You can't take anything harmful with you. You can't go there and do anything harmful to anyone. So yes, the souls in the next world. When my father was dying, I was standing next to my father's bed. And every now and then he would turn his head and look into the corner of the room, and he would smile and he'd look back at me. I said, Daddy, what are you doing? He said, and he'd look over there again and he'd nod his head and he'd smile and look back at me. And he died doing that. He died seeing someone in the other world, acknowledging them, smiling at them, and then looking at me and saying, can't you see them? It's like, can't you see them? I mean, he wasn't talking. He had to look in his eyes like, don't you see they're right there? And they were coming for him. They were coming for him. And I know they were coming for him. And I realized that they were there with him and helping him along. So I'm positive, you know, that connection is real, and it's not that far away. But what about it? Closer than your life's vein. The next world is closer to you than your life vein. That's how close it is. It's not a distance away. The next world is right here. We just can't see it. If you interview this plant, they got a plant next to me. If you say, plant, tell us about the human beings in this world. And the plant would say, what? That's a myth. There's no such thing as a human being. Human beings don't exist. Plants don't have any consciousness of our existence. We walk around plants all the time, and they don't even know we're here. And the next world is around us all the time, and we don't know that they're there. They're right there. They're a veil away, just one little veil away, and we could see them. And if we could see them and see that world, Baha'u'llah said you would slit your throat. You couldn't stay here anymore. You can't, he won't let you see it completely. But if you saw it, he did let one guy see it. His name was Zabi. He asked Baha'u'llah for the spiritual food and not material food. And he sat in front of Baha'u'llah, and Baha'u'llah opened up the realm of the next world so he could see it. And every day he got closer and closer to having to leave this world. So one day he took off his green turban and swept the gateway, the walkway to Baha'u'llah's house for the last time at dawn, and went down to the Tigris, took out a razor and cut his own throat. And Baha'u'llah said it was not a suicide, it was a sacrifice. He gave up his life to be in the next world. That's what Baha'u'llah had shown him. And that's why he won't show anybody else, because we could not stay here. If we could see that world, we would not stay in this world. So we do have a connection with that life, and those souls are waiting for us, and they'll be there to greet us once we leave this world. They'll be there to help us make that transition into that life, just like the doctor and the daddy is helping the baby come out of mama, helping them into this world. There'll be those helping us into that world.
Thank you. Thank you so very much, Oscar. Mr. Duraivi, we saw your message. I think Mr. Duraivi from Malaysia, correct? Would you like to suggest what you suggested on the chat, please? Just unmute yourself and make the suggestions to the public, please.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Yeah, we welcome Oscar and Rod back in future. Yeah,
would you agree if I said next week?
Yeah, next week. Yeah, no worries. Next week, okay.
Thank you, Mr. Durai. We appreciate your presence here. Thank you. We love the Malaysian friends. Thank you very much.
Okay, welcome.
Thank you. I want to read another piece by Pina, who is another Malaysian friend. This is something interesting, but we don't have time for comments. I experienced deja vu in 1979 in my pioneering post in Thailand. I dreamt someone told me, just a voice, I want to marry you. My response, I don't know you. Few months later, when I left for Malaysia to be able to extend my visa to stay longer in Thailand, while in Penang, Malaysia, this Baha'i youth that I met for the first time said exactly as in my dream. And my answer was the same. We got married at the end of 1979, then pioneered to Africa, then Sri Lanka. We are now back in Malaysia. Have you heard a more beautiful story? Pina, this is as beautiful as your voice and as your prayers. We'll have your prayers at the end of the meeting, okay? We love you. Thank you. Friends, Mr. Taherzadeh, I apologize for being rude, but we have 5 more minutes and then we want to finish with prayers for the world, for the peace in the world. Would you kindly, may I ask you to be short, please?
Dear Rod, this topic is so crucial, and I believe your intention was to provide those links to your compilations and to your website, but we see all these comments in chat, but we still don't see those links. If we could take 1 minute to allow you to add those links in the chat, it will be wonderful.
Wonderful.
Mr. Taherzadeh, scroll up. This is
at the very top, the very
first one.
The very first one.
Oh, no.
Yeah. all the way.
I don't see.
Yeah, there are no links in here.
Oh,
Okay,
I'm going to copy them and try to paste them below. I wanted to, everyone, come on. Let me do it to everyone. Try out here.
yeah, yes, yeah. Probably some of us joined the meeting. Yeah, now we see it. Probably some of us joined the meeting soon after these were
Oh, yes.
chat.
I guess if you join
So-
later.
So the system only shows what we could see in our during our presence. Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you.
Well, let me just close then with sharing what is in that chat. The first one was something I thought we might get to. It's the stages of the soul from a tablet, an Arabic tablet by Abdul Baha. And it is a commentary on the Quranic verse concerning the overthrow of the Byzantines. And it gives the most detailed explanation of the stages of the soul. There's a link to that. And so you can go and read it yourself and study it. It is a phenomenal document, and you'll get, no matter what your background, if you haven't seen it, I think it will give you great insights.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
The other link is to my website, which takes you right to the Baha'i study guides and compilations that I've made. And as I told you earlier, I have created one on the soul. That's 70 pages. I'm still working on it. I will try to post it as a revised version tomorrow, and hopefully you'll be able to get there. But if you do go to, there is a longer one, I think it's called Becoming the Vanguard and Champions of a New Civilization. It's 700 pages. And if you just go in there and if you just type in Find Soul, you'll probably find 100 or 200 occurrences of there, and you could study it that way as well, but as you wish. And obviously you can go to the reference library, type in soul, you can go to Ocean and type in soul. It is a lifetime of study there.
thank you so much. We have 6 more minutes. Jeremy, I would like to welcome you. Thank you very much for participating. So we'll have more of Rod, so you will join us as well. May I ask a few of us to say prayers, and we might pass 9 o'clock. Jeremy, would you like to say a prayer for departed, for Mary, a fantastic servant of God who served in Haifa selflessly? And Rod, thank you so much for inviting your friends here. Because of you, we see them. Also, I was wondering, Todd, would you like to say a prayer now that you haven't been here for 3 years?
Well, I'm sorry, for 3 years, for 3 months, I think. No, I didn't come prepared. I'm sorry.
Okay, no problem. Nahid, are you there? Miss Nahid Mutahar, we served together in Haifa. Okay, I can hear her. Pina, we would like to ask you to say a prayer as well. Okay.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, hold on just a second. Oh, you are there. Oh, give our love to Nahid Jun, please. Thank you. Thank you. That's a shame that she didn't come to participate in this fireside. I will talk to her later myself. But thank you for being here. Thank you so much. Friends, Tara, are you there? Okay. Mr. Liu, are you gone? Okay. Friends, as you suggested, I will suggest to Rod. Oh, Mr. Liu here. Oh, wonderful. So we have a longer period of prayer. Then thank you. Thank you for being here. So we will suggest to both of these amazing speakers who sit next to each other so beautifully, to actually join us next week. I have never done this before, but because the friends from Malaysia suggested this, I can never say no to them. So why don't you, Rod, can you discuss this? Oh, you see people are clapping. So would you like to come back, both of you, next week?
I'm happy to.
Why are you looking at Rod? You should say the same thing.
Oh, he invited me to come sit next to him. This is
You're going to come and do it
he's
next
the
week.
speaker.
You're
He's
gonna
the
come
speaker.
do it.
I'm a guest to the speaker.
So
Okay.
he'll be our guest speaker next week
No,
as
guest
well.
to the speaker.
So we will have 2-for-1 speaker for next week. Mr. Durai, you see that we listened to your suggestion, and thank you very much, everyone, for being here tonight. It was a blessed night, and I particularly, for one, feel very inspired with this talk. Rod, thank you so much. Appreciate it. Really, really appreciate it. And thank you, Oscar. Thank you so much for joining Rod and making it even more beautiful. Jeremy, why don't we start the prayers with you, and then we go.
Stop recording before you do the prayers. I don't know if you.
Yeah, we'll stop yeah, good. Thank you.